I think habit change is a great Trojan horse for listening in on the way you speak to yourself. Come on, you shouldn't be finding this so hard. This should be easier. This is just like your teacher told you when you were little. You're just the sort of person who starts things and doesn't finish them. And then you should start on Monday.
Is that possible, that there are some things that we can't change?
Ugh. Sit back.
And this leads on to the kindness method, which was the first book you wrote, very much inspired by your own experience with weight loss and struggles there. You work with people that want to change, you know. Many of them, I'm sure, are successful in that change. Some of them are unsuccessful in that change. If you were to try and identify why some people are unsuccessful in their change, what are like the overarching themes?
Sit back. So I've got, one of them is focusing on the outcome, thinking that your long-term desired outcome is going to be compelling enough on the spot to get you where you want to be. So you start from a place of desperation. This is it. This has got to change. I want this. I want the health. I want the outcome. I want the progression. And then you forget that that isn't going to be enough. Your motivation will waver. Your plans will not go to plan. And you're going to need to have a conversation with yourself when your plans don't go to plan that talks you into making a decision you'll be proud you made the next day. So I think, one, people wildly underestimate how much it's about zooming in and getting involved in and excited about demonstrating your capacity in a row, as opposed to hoping that remedying some negatives long-term will be exciting enough to keep you on track long enough to make that habit automatic. The other thing that people do wrong, I think, is focus on what's wrong with them as opposed to their assets. And they don't have that locked and loaded for that moment where they doubt themselves, they want to throw in the towel and think, I can't do this. They need to be ready to have to really debate with that with genuine evidence to the contrary, in the spirit of wanting to update it more generally, not just in the context of that habit. Taking life off hold. So all those things I said now, everything you're going to reward yourself with, really look at it and ask yourself, if I started doing it now, would it put me in a better position to do difficult things, which is ultimately what behavioral change is. Simple, but not easy. The other thing people do is they, what else? Oh yeah, of course. I mean, you've had Gabor Mate on here. They focus on what's wrong with the behavior that they're engaging in as opposed to how it's serving them. They look at it as a problem as opposed to a solution. And not only does that take away the component of compassion and understanding that's required when they're stuck thinking, why am I finding this so hard? I have no willpower, I must be stupid, or whatever it is. It also deprives you of understanding whether there's a problem that still needs solving when you take that away. Mm-hmm. And with compassion. And sometimes people find themselves filling that gap with another solution, as opposed to doing it in a way that says, do you know what? This behavior is doing a job for me. So if I'm not changing, something's going on. And that needs some curious, compassionate inquiry. That definitely. I think the other thing is that this whole tough love, the way you speak to yourself thing, people think that like tough love when you're speaking to yourself often isn't very smart love. So if, let's say for example, you came to me and you're like, Shahroo, I'm trying to stay on track with this plan and I've just fallen off track. And my task was to get you back on track, believing in yourself as quickly as possible and equipping you to carry on, ultimately making myself redundant to you. I wouldn't say to you, come on, you shouldn't be finding this so hard. This should be easier. This is just like your teacher told you when you were little. You're just the sort of person who starts things and doesn't finish them. And then you should start on Monday. You know, that's smart. It's not smart. And that's where people feel super disempowered because they're not taking the advice they'd give another person. That's the important bit here. That's the self-esteem bit. We don't have a problem in knowing how to change habits. And people don't have a problem in knowing what habits they want to change and how they would benefit them. And now, thanks to many of the books behind you, we don't have a problem understanding exactly how habit change works. I think people feel patronized because what they needed was understanding why, if I have all this information and I'm smart and I want to do this, I'm not doing it. And instead of beating themselves up about it, to delve into the story. How did I come to be this way? With compassion. How cool is it that this isn't my fault, but I've decided to make it my responsibility? How can I use behavioral change as a Trojan horse and the discomfort I have to sit in that's unavoidable, short term, urges, cravings, to listen in on the way that I speak to myself and work out whether these predictable alerts from my body are turning into commands that I'm obeying. I just think these are check-ins we should do. And I wanted to give people something so that they didn't feel like they had to wait till things got really bad. And also, so it was a private process. And that's what the kindness method became. It was basically everything useful I wish I'd had, everything useful I saw in addiction. And then when I went on to train addiction staff, which was my next job after that, and work in criminal justice, just everything useful I saw with the most challenging, resistant client, myself included. Bear in mind, I start using this stuff and like iterating, using it on myself, using it in different ways. And I put it in the book step by step, just in case there were people like me who wanted to change habits on their own terms, kind of checking with the program that they're running. Where did it come from? Who's it from? Do I want to switch it up? Do I want to update it? Some of it fake news. I think habit change is a great Trojan horse for listening in on the way you speak to yourself and debating with it until it's updated. And I'm really surprised that we don't do that in life.
If I've got a really stubborn story that I tell myself, really stubborn, something traumatic that happened to me under the age of, 10, and it's created a story, a narrative in my mind that is just, has control of the wheel, is driving my life, my decisions, and is driving the self-talk in my head that's utterly negative. You must encounter people who have that just can't shake it. Is that possible, that there are some things that we just can't, that just have too much power over us? They've changed the circuitry in our brain to an extent that, we can't change.
I don't think people like me should say yes or no to things when they don't know who they're talking to with the size of the platform that you have, to be honest with you. Of course, there are traumas that I can't speak to. Of course, I've worked in addiction with young people in addiction. I wouldn't have the audacity to sit here and say, yeah, just, and that's actually what really pisses me off about Instagram sometimes. I'll see something and it'll be like, oh, just replace a negative thought with a positive one. And it's like, oh, wow, are you a wizard? You should be on the news. But I think one thing I will say is I have been really pleasantly surprised by what happens when you appeal to people's need for evidence. Disprove it. The stuff we tell ourselves a lot of the time, it's not true. Or it hasn't been true for a long time. That's compelling.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.